Go over each column and how it works and how you get an answer at the end. This is the part that some students will not really understand this very much, but others will pick it up straight away. It'll be quite straightforward. Okay? But everybody wants to know how this works out as marks. I know you guys, it's nothing to do with anything to do with what I tell you. The minute that I mention marks, you want to know exactly how you can get as much marks as possible. So you're required to do a section AA and BB that are obviously going to have everything that you did in assignment 1. So you're going to need, there's a big checklist list on Moodle there from we talked about this in the lecture. If you're still looking around sort of thinking, oh, I can't remember what Roger said, go to Moodle and have a look. Briefly in summarising it, you're going to need to put the tree on. You're going to need to do your all your bits and pieces on this. So you're going to need your lines coming down and your cut and fill and the pipe and what the pipe's going to look like and the tree. And now finally you can actually put the cross-sectional areas into here and here and here. This is only going to be fill because it cuts right through the fill. And the other thing is this is going on one contour line, so when you map the contour line it's probably going to be pretty flat. So just be aware of that when you come around to do it. Don't do the contour lines and go, oh, I've done it wrong. You haven't done it wrong. If it's fairly flat, you've probably done it right, because this contour, the section's probably going to follow a contour line. If you wanted a little bit more accurate, you could do a half contour line, but really, I'm more interested in how you present this. There are a number of things you're going to have to work out with AutoCAD. For example, you're going to have to work out your text types, because they change. It's 1 to 50. You're going to have to do your viewports differently, work out how you're going to fit in the viewport. You probably can't do one of those things where you put all your legend and everything to the right hand side. You may have to put that somewhere else in the drawing because it might not quite fit. Okay? There are some things you won't need. You won't need a locality plan, for example. You won't need the survey set out points on these cross sections. So please don't include those. They're not necessary. They can stay on the proposed plan. So it's 2 marks for each of those. They're very easy to draw because they're 1-to-1. There's no thinking about, my tummy and its distortion and all that. It's just 1-to-1. You're drawing it just like you would draw in communications or technical literacy, how you did that cross section. I'll put some videos up of that cross section actually. Some of you may find it interesting to revise it. You know how you did just the 1-to-1. Unfortunately, a lot of students decide that's all, I'll flag the next mark, but it actually is quite easy. It's not that difficult. What I'm requiring you to do is approximately, well, you've already got that cross section, so you decide how many more you want to do. I'm sort of saying about 9 more. But you might want to do 7 more, in which case you'll make those spaces a bit further apart. But of course, the least you do, the more your volume is going to vary from the rest of the class. So you might get, for example, when we do our volume at the end, you might get a number here like, I don't know, 104.3 of fill. You might get 108.2. And somebody that's only done 3 cross sections over here, they might get something like 210.3. So I'm going to look at that and go, well, there's something wrong there. And I'm going to look more at your work than I am going to be looking at these 2 students who got very similar numbers. No one should have the same number, by the way, because you've all done different cross sections. You've all done different sections up here. They'll all be just fractionally different. But it should be very close, which is a good check. I mean, if you go home and do it yourself, come back, talk to your mate, what did you get? 103, what did you get? 108, well, it's probably you've both done it right. But if you're this far apart, then you've got a problem. One of you is wrong. So how do you do it? Well, you just do these little diagrams here for me. And I demonstrated one of those last week. It's very quick and easy to draw that up. Don't want the trees on here, don't want anything else but the little lines and how much meters squared it is by drawing a P line around that bit. And you'll see here that initially it'll be just fill, then it will turn into fill and cut, and then more like that, and then at the end here you'll have something quite strange, which will be fill and then cut with a gap in between the two. Something along those lines. Alright? So, yep, I'm going to donate 1 mark towards that because there's quite a bit of work in it. You decide how many you need. I'm thinking around 9, 8, something like that. And as I said, if you decide to only do 2 or 3, it's going to look, you're going to get a different answer to the rest of the class. I'll take those, do you want me to leave those there or take them out? They're not the real numbers, by the way. I'm just showing you. Perhaps I'm best to take them out. So how do you get your other 2 half marks? Well, in order to get, you need to listen really carefully here. In order to get your other half marks, this bit is super easy. All you do is put these numbers into the spreadsheet and the gap that you've chosen between them, wham, it'll just spit out the answer for you, just like that. And I'm going to show you today how you cut and paste that into AutoCAD, pretty easy, and your answer will come out at the bottom here. So there's half your mark. That can be in model space, the drawing. I don't want to see it in paper space, don't care. I want to see it in layout. Just as long as these things are in the model somewhere. Try not to put them miles and miles away. I've had students buzz in and I'm like, nah, they didn't do it. And then they've emailed me back saying, you gave me 0. And I said, where was it? Oh, it was like 4,000 kilometres away up in the top right hand corner and I never saw it, you know. So please try and put it near everything else so I can see it when I open up your model space. Lastly, we talked about the compaction factor. So you're going to have a wee think about this one. And I won't hide the fact that it's going to be 5%. But your problem is going to be, is it plus 5% or minus 5%? So I told you it's going to be the same as what was in the lecture. 30% compaction and 25% was the other number, so it ended up as a 5% overall. The clue is the little boy in the garden digging up his hole, and old dear puts everything back, but he's left with 5% extra. Alright, see if you can figure that one out. It will change according to whether you get a cut or a fill surplus as well. So that's your that's where you toss a coin in there and go plus or minus, okay? Or you read through your notes and work it out. I will have a question in the test on about compaction factors, so if you do it yourself, there's a chance if that comes up, you'll know very easy how to do it. Okay? And so this is the bit that we'll be talking about today, the prismoidal calculation sheet. Now on top of that, you will guaranteed get 2 questions on this sheet in your test. So that's not one that you might or might not, you will definitely get 2 questions. So I will try and explain it as best I can, and you will need to remember it for the test. So you need to remember the columns as such. So let's, this little talk's only going to last a fairly short while, and you can carry on with the assignment. Put your hand up if you made some progress.